Hey everybody, it's Chrissy Key Rollins here. If you're new to my channel, I typically share holistic tips to enhance your life, to reduce overwhelm, and to increase your joy and fulfillment. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than that, but kind of still in alignment as I share my own personal experience in the difference between public schools, charter schools, homeschooling, and unschooling. So if you want more holistic tips, check out the rest of my videos. If you're here just for this, welcome. And I'm glad to be part of this conversation. I look forward to your feedback. So my daughter is currently in the third grade. We have had firsthand experience in enrolling her and starting her educational experience in a charter school. Now, we live in the state of North Carolina. I am only familiar with her particular lineage of charter schools, so I cannot say that the information I'm going to share is across the board experience for every single charter school that you come into contact with, but I will tell you I had a preconceived notion of what charter schools are. I was introduced to the charter school system through her particular school lineage. And I had a lot of eye-opening experiences that I took away. And as I continue to have conversations with other parents, I find that a lot of people had some of the same preconceived notions and are not aware of the bigger picture of what charter schools are really about. So I'll start with public school. I think we're all most familiar with public school concepts. They are a public entity. They are funded by states, and they have to follow a certain set of guidelines that are put out by the state in order to receive their funding and to stay in operating order. Most of us are most familiar with that. I don't really have a lot of insights to share on that, other than it's a system that most of us grew up in, experienced firsthand ourselves, and are introducing our kids to whenever they get started with school. Now, here comes the charter schools. Charter schools are partially publicly funded, meaning they get some of their funding from the public school system, from the state itself. Some people don't like charter schools because they feel like it takes money that could be going into public schools. Some people are really great fans of them. I had heard that they give a better experience, that they introduce your kids to more of the kind of electives and special classes that we had growing up. So they get more of a well-rounded approach to education that is very heavily, my experience of all charter schools, they are very heavily academically focused. And then along with it, they usually have an avenue or outlets or options that allow kids to develop outside of that traditional scope of education, to where they can bring in music, they can bring in art. Maybe they have more time throughout their day that are dedicated to these other studies as well. Our particular charter school that we were a part of, they have a big emphasis on a moral focus. That's one of the things that really drove us and piqued our interest about this school and impressed us right from the beginning. It was the first time that I had seen a public educational entity of any sort, be it charter or public, bring in a moral focus, meaning they were teaching principles. They spend a month, every single 1 month throughout the year, following 9 different moral focuses, things like compassion, gratitude, perseverance, all things that were very important to my husband and myself, all values that we instill and that we make a conscious effort to incorporate into developing our child. And we love the idea that the school itself would be an extension of this and reiterate it and give her other ways to think about it and kind of be that echoing, reinforced voice that we are trying as parents here within the home to develop a child with great moral character. So we were thrilled. We went to the informational meeting. We went to the open house. We learned everything that we could. And it was almost as if magic had brought this school, this amazing school, into our world at the time that my daughter was starting her kindergarten education. Now, charter schools typically work on a lottery system. So where a public school, you just have to live within the county, within the school district, you register your child to go to that school, they are now a student at that public school. Charter schools work differently. They are a choice school, meaning you have a choice on if you attend them or not. And they don't work on an open enrollment. They have a limited number of seats, and they typically work, ours did, worked on a lottery system, meaning that at the start of the school year, or when the school opened, they drew names from a hat of everybody who had registered. If your name, your child's name got drawn, they had a seat offered to them within the school. And if their name didn't get drawn, or if they got drawn after all the seats were filled, they get put on a wait list. And the only way that that wait list moves is if the children who are enrolled in that school get unenrolled. If they leave the school for whatever reason, then seats open up. Now, we had the fortune, I guess one would say, of having our daughter's name pulled. She was entering her kindergarten year, the year that this school was opening. And we really thought that we won the actual lottery, because not only was our child going to a school that was nearby, that instilled these morals and values, but they were a better school. They do things better. They thought more holistically, I thought. They thought more about what they were really developing, along with a high level of IQ and educational intelligence. There was that moral character, and we just really were ecstatic. Even though the hours were longer. She started school earlier and finished the day later than her public district elementary school would have been. It's a little bit longer days, but that's okay. Hey, I have my own business, so I was excited to have my day open just a little bit longer so that I could get more work done while my daughter was in these really great hands. So the day was a little bit longer, but she's new to it all. So we just thought we'll give it a go. The day's a little bit more structured. There's a lot more responsibility that are put on the kids' shoulders to keep everything moving how it needs to throughout the day. Again, I saw this as a positive thing, because it taught my child not to just sit back, but how to be proactive and keeping a good structure, and to be a contributing part to a whole. I thought that this was really, really great. So I will tell you that our experience of the staff was exceptional. Every person that we interacted with, be it at the info session, at the open house, or even once my child was enrolled, her teachers were no doubt, caring and compassionate, really excited to be there. The overall energy of the school was very positive, very uplifting, one that is a very, very much an I can, we can kind of environment, which again, very, very lovely as far as interactions. What I started to realize over time is that part of the reason that it was working so well for us is that my daughter just fit right into the system. She's smart. She catches on to things quickly. She has a good sense of herself. So she's very supported at home. And we found that some kids within this classroom environment, I'm going to pause real quick to talk about that classroom environment before I talk about the kids in it. There's a common misnomer that charter schools create smaller classrooms and more one-on-one time with the teacher. That's not necessarily the case. It is 100% not the case for my daughter's school. Again, they have a very structured system. They count on the kids to run the show quite a bit. They fully state out their expectations. I'm a fan of this. They expect the kids to meet this. I'm a fan of this as well. But what it does do is that it causes the kids to depend on each other for their learning more so than the teacher directly. Again, I saw this as a good thing, and many of you watching this may see this as a good thing. I think it's great for kids to learn how to communicate with each other, how to get things done as a group, and I like them being seen as fully equipped to do such, instead of being seen as underdeveloped and you need to leave all that to the teacher. So I'm a fan of this. However, it worked well for my child. It did not work well for other kids. And if you're choosing a charter school because you think the classroom's going to be smaller and the kids are going to have more one-on-one time with the teacher, I strongly encourage you to start conversations with that school to find out exactly what that classroom environment is like. From our experience, it was not the case. Again, our child did well because she could catch on to things quickly. She interacts with other kids very well. She's very supported at home. Now, this is what I was saying before the tangent on the classroom size. Not all kids fit well within that system. If your child is not getting all the support that they need at home, or maybe there's some shifts and changes happening within your home dynamics that's limiting how much support and stability they can have going, this kind of environment is not necessarily the best for them, because a lot of times what we found is that what is lacking for emotional needs at home often gets brought over to the classroom. And if that child, if your child or another child within the class is not fitting well within that system, needs the more direct attention. Or we also saw the flip side. If your child is very introverted, if they're very shy and they need time to build a one-on-one relationship before they're going to speak up for themselves, before they're going to ask questions, then this environment may not be the best fit for you, even if it looks really, really good in the way that they're presenting it. This was the other thing that we found out about charter schools as well. Charter schools are backed by a business. They are a company that runs the schools. They're individual. Ours has like a chain of, I don't know, 80 different schools throughout the US. So they're different sizes. They got different things that are behind them, but they are run by a company, because part of that funding is made up by the company, and as well as fundraising and parent participation for funding. That was definitely a huge part of our charter school, and it's a huge part of the other local charter schools as well, continually looking to raise money for funding for what it is that the kids are doing. So be prepared if you get into a charter system that you will do a lot more fundraising or asked to be involved more as a parent than you may experience previously in public schools or with the public school system. So they're backed by a company. Now, this is where you might, as a parent, might want to sit back and take a little bit of a note. While there are companies that influence decisions across the state that affect our public school systems, within a company that has control over our charter school system, they are not necessarily going to make the choices that are best for your kids, no matter how good their public relations are. I found that charter schools are public schools with better public relations, meaning they have a lot of the same problems, a lot of the same issues. However, they're much better at marketing, and they're much better at putting forth the image of what it is that they would like to have you think their school is about, without highlighting the ill-fittingness that you may find once you actually get into the system. Again, we didn't have a problem with the educational structure or fitting within the system, because our child just fit well into it. But if you have a child with special needs, if you have a child with different behavioral expressions that may not be conducive for such structured environments, then you might find that this is not the best fit for you, and that public school would actually do a little bit better, especially again in the special needs department. Again, I can't speak for all charter schools, but I know our charter school, as I've had conversations with teachers that applied for jobs there that turned down positions, I have learned that in part of the reason, this particular case, Johnson, or our particular charter school, looks for a specific type of child. They aren't necessarily interested in ones that need a lot of heavy additional support. They are more interested in kids like mine who fit really well, who test really well, and can score really good grades, because that is the motivating factor from the individual schools as they compete for recognition within the company and qualify for bonuses and what have you within the company. So if you are a parent of a special needs child and they get pulled for the local charter school, I encourage you to have some one-on-one conversation to find out exactly what you can expect moving forward, and ask questions that you may not, that aren't getting addressed in their public presentation of what you can expect of their school. The public presentation matters to them greatly, so much so that as I shared some of my experience, even within a social media group, I was contacted by administration and told not to have those conversations out loud, to take it up directly with administration and not to let other people know that that's a problem that's going on. So public image and public perception is really big with charter schools. And again, I kind of boil it down to, it's a public school with better PR. So they're going to lean on the fact that they're a private entity when it behooves them, and they're going to lean on the fact that they need that government funding when it behooves them, and only when it behooves the company, not necessarily your individual child. So classroom sizes may not be in your favor. The structure of the school may not be in your favor. The ideal child that they're looking for as a student may not be in your favor. And I'm sharing this because, again, we felt like we won the lottery, like the actual lottery, when we won the charter school lottery. And it was just over a matter of the last few years, or, our first few years involved, that we were able to see another side of it. Again, if we had not had any issues, we would have never seen this side. Majority of parents are very, very pleased with that school, which I think is great. But most of those parents drop their kids off, pick their kids up, and their kids fit well within the system, and they're not running into these other hiccups along the way that I feel it's just, I'm big on giving people all the information so that you can make the most informed decision for yourself. And I feel like some of this information that I'm relaying, it was never brought up. It was never brought to our attention, but I have found that part of it is an ongoing conversation for people that have learned this firsthand and have removed themselves from the system. And that's what we're finding for ourselves as well. Now, I will say I did have a couple of instances once we switched to virtual schooling. Once I saw the curriculum that my daughter was being exposed to, I had some severe issues with some of the curriculum inappropriateness. And I found that their school in particular is working on developing their own curriculum, which kind of made me feel a little bit more uneasy than thinking that they're just passing this along, but they're actually creating it and passing it out. If anybody wants specifics on that, happy to discuss more one-on-one, not the focus of this conversation. But just so you know, just because they implement their own curriculum, take a look at that curriculum, see what your kids are reading, look at the stories that they're being exposed to, especially your elementary school kids. I think that that's very, very important. I would have had no idea that my daughter was being read and told to read such stories if I had not seen it for myself during the virtual transition. Now, we have decided to pull my daughter from the charter school for a number of reasons, but part of that process was coming to terms with homeschooling. It was something that I never really felt called to do. I don't feel like that's my strong point, to teach my child how to read and how to write. Thankfully, the charter school did an amazing job doing that. She could do both of those skill sets just fine. So as we transition into homeschooling, I'm not having to cover some of the basics. Sorry, I can't give you too much info on that, but I'll tell you what I found is that when I was looking at homeschooling versus stepping into homeschooling, I found night and day difference. And that's why I felt called to make this video. Night and day difference in the charter school system, night and day difference in the homeschooling system. Homeschooling from the outside looks like you're isolated, looks like your kids get no social interaction, and looks like it's all up to you to figure out how to educate your child. What I found on the other side really quickly is that there is an amazing network of homeschooling parents that homeschool for various different reasons. I assure you, if you're feeling called to homeschooling and you decide to do it, you will find other parents that are homeschooling for the exact same reasons that you do, but we all have our reasons. We all have our reasons. And the biggest reason is that it's the best fit for our kids and for our life and the life experience that we want to bring to our children. That's a big driving factor for me. And what I found is that you are so not alone in homeschooling. You are so not alone. There are so many other homeschooling parents. There are so many individuals that you don't even know are homeschooling because you've been so busy going and dropping off and picking up and doing the public school and the charter school thing. You don't even realize there's a whole world of homeschoolers that are out here floating around. I know in a nearby county, their enrollment last year was down 60,000 students. So believe me, there are a lot of homeschoolers that are in your area, in your neighborhood, around your town. Just open yourself up to that possibility, start having conversations about homeschooling, start to bring that into your day-to-day, and you will find so many parents homeschool, and so many parents that homeschool are big advocates for other parents homeschooling. I have become a big advocate for parents homeschooling. If you can't homeschool and your decision is public or charter school, I would say charter school, you're going to have a little bit more attention to detail in areas that public school isn't, but then you're also running into a very structured system that may not be ideal for your child. If I had to go back to one or the other, I would put my daughter back into the charter school, even though I have issues, because the issues that I have with the charter school are still going to be issues with the public school. but at least here she's getting some moral character development is the way that I boiled it down to. If you can homeschool, I highly recommend it. What I thought beforehand is that parents are ill-equipped. We're not going to raise our kids as smart. They're going to have social behavioral issues and fitting into society. And what if my child is really, really smart at something that I'm not smart at, and because I don't introduce it to her properly, she misses out on a whole side of life. These are the common fears. What I have found, even just within a couple of weeks of doing homeschooling, my child is more excited about learning than I've ever seen her before. She is brimming with ideas of things that she wants to do, topics that she wants to study and learn about, projects that she wants to create. So we have decided within the spectrum of homeschooling, there is another little school of thought called unschooling. Unschooling, much like homeschooling, has got a really negative reputation in that your kids are going to be awkward. They're not going to know how to fit into society. They're not going to learn everything that they need to know. Unschooling is stepping away from this structured idea that you need to tick certain tasks off and learn in a certain manner and accomplish certain goals, much like what we do in public schools and in charter schools in that more structured environment, moving through grammar and math and spelling and these language arts topics that are needed, I think are very important to cover. But unschooling allows you to do it how you want to do it and to learn through life instead of a basic curriculum. So homeschooling, typically you get a curriculum or access to curriculum that has been developed by teachers, other homeschooling parents, other companies that are on the market making homeschooling material. There's tons of structured. You can just basically take that same classroom environment and recreate it within your home in a shorter amount of hours, more specific focus, meeting your child where they're at. That would be like your typical approach to homeschooling. But within the homeschooling field, there is a school of thought of unschooling, where you step away from this structured approach and you instead rely on the fact that you and your child are fully equipped and completely intelligent enough to learn everything that needs to be learned in order to pass the tests, to graduate, in order to be accepted into colleges if you choose to go that route. And what I have found by leaning into this unschooling option is that it's not just a free-for-all that you just let your kid run the show and start calling all the shots. Although unschooling looks different for everybody, perhaps that's the way you choose to unschool. It's not the way that we choose to unschool. We still have some structure. We still have bedtimes. We still have wake up times. And we just let my daughter choose what topic. And as she dives into the topic that she wants to learn, first of all, she's giving it way more attention than if I forced a topic on her and made her read something. Instead, she's checking page after page, reading book after book, trying to find the information on the topics that she's most interested in. And as she's doing that, I'm just finding ways that I can work in all the extra things that I know she needs to learn when she goes to take her annual test to pass her grade as a homeschooler. So public schools, totally familiar with. Charter school, public school with better PR. Homeschooling, actually something there that is way more supported, way more. I mean, you don't have to worry about resources, materials, nothing. Just find another homeschooling parent and they will turn you on to all the information that you need to know. Find some homeschooling groups on social media. Find some homeschooling groups in your area. Now, homeschooling means one, at least in the state of North Carolina, one or two households learning together or individually. But within that, you can make co-ops. So your homeschool can partner up with your friend's homeschool that's in the neighborhood and partner up with your other friend's homeschool that's around the block. And then the three of you can work together to co-op, to trade off who's teaching what, when, and to get the kids in that more social environment. And then the other thing is the unschooling, which is absolutely 100% different for every single family that takes it on. And what I love most about unschooling is that it's allowing me to know my daughter in ways that I would never know her if I was just serving everything up to her. It also gives us a chance to learn how to communicate in a way that is far more effective. And it also gives us a chance to explore everything that we have within us before we default over to something outside of us to tell us the answers and to show us the way. So for ourselves, we're giving it a 6-month trial of unschooling, letting my daughter pick the topics and just having in our own head what aspects that we want her to cover, because we have to work in some math, we have to work in some grammar, we have to work in some writing, because those things are all important to us and they will be important for her later on as she passes tests and graduates and if she wants to go on to college. But we're going to give it 6 months of letting her curiosity lead the way and seeing how it unfolds. And how it has unfolded so far is that my daughter has done school 7 days a week because she wants to learn every single day. She's asking, can I read about this? Can we do some more math problems? She's asking for it on her own accord. And I have never experienced this before, ever. It also gave my daughter a chance to give voice to the fact that she didn't really care for school. Now, I know, none of us really liked school. We like playing with our friends. We like the extra bonuses and stuff that we got from school, but none of us really liked school and having to do things that we didn't really want to be doing when we didn't want to be doing it. So I get that. I totally get that. But I couldn't hear my daughter say that she didn't like it because, one, I never gave her a choice to have an opinion in it. I just shuffled her out the door and said, this is what we're doing. And two, she didn't have the perspective, the life experience to put things into perspective. Now, she did tell me her very first request for homeschooling, she said she didn't want to go back to school because it's the only place that she goes that people are mean to her. I had to agree, because what she dealt with at school from the other kids is not what she gets exposed to whenever she's around friends and family. So I totally felt for her. And I thought that that was a really big kind of wake-up call to think about how our kids are treating each other in these mass environments. And I also feel it's important that she knows how to deal with difficult people. So it's not about just remove her from challenging situations or having to do things that she doesn't really love to do or would prefer not to do. There's still plenty of that you got to do in life. Plenty of that you got to do in life. But it was an interesting thing to remove her from the system and to be able to hear what it is that she has to say about it. And perhaps your kids have something that they would say too, if they were given the chance. And I also want to say that your experience may be totally different than mine. And the reason that I'm making this video is just to start the conversation, because I know that my experience is valid and that it might help some parents out there that are feeling like, do I pass up this seat at this charter school and miss out on the chance of a really amazing education for my child? Because that was the hardest thing for me to do. Even though I knew we were withdrawing her, even though I knew that we were going to move forward with homeschooling, I still totally procrastinated on withdrawing her because part of me still wants to believe that that was better for her, that it was better for her, because their marketing is that good. Their public relations is that good. It will have you questioning on what is best for your child. But when you know what is best for your child and you honor it, you open up something unbelievable for you and for them. My daughter feels heard, she feels seen, she feels loved, she feels supported. I'll keep you posted on if that continues down the road. But right now, she's crazy enthusiastic about learning. She's excited to explore all the topics that are of her interest. And if after 6 months we feel like she's not progressing, we'll reach out to some of those other homeschooling moms and some of that homeschooling curriculum, and we'll implement that right into the system. I want to hear from you. What's your experience been like? Did you have a heartbreaking letdown experience with the system or with your charter school system? Did you have an amazing experience with homeschooling or unschooling? Do you have questions about any of that? Joining an unschooling group was one of the best things I could do, because I thought unschooling was just like this blanket, you just let them go and that's that. But what I found is that unschooling looks different for each and every single family. And that's what I love about it most. Being someone who's holistically minded and all about individual self-expression and knowing authentically who you are and believing in the innate intelligence that was planted inside of us, just like the seeds that know how to grow out in my garden. That's what really excites me about this idea of unschooling, that we actually have everything that we need and that we are fully equipped. And if we can just come together as a family, communicate better, honor each other more, what's going to be possible for us? If you've been unschooling for a while, I want to know your experience. If you've been homeschooling for a while, I want to know your experience. If you've been hesitant to make the shift into homeschooling or unschooling because of the public or charter system, I want to know. I want to know all of this. So drop some comments down below. Share this with other moms and other parents if you think that it would be helpful. And yeah, thank you so much for listening and watching all the way to this point. Check out my other videos if you want more simplified tips on living a holistic life for you and your family. And yeah, if anybody wants to connect or feel like you're all alone out there, you're not. You're not. Reach out. I'd be happy to support and connect and get you connected with other people as well. All right. Thanks for watching. Much love to you and to all your kids. And just know, whatever it is that you're doing, even if you think you should be making a change in your kids' education system, just know that where you're at is exactly where you're supposed to be. So love and pay attention to the ones that are going through it, yourself and your family. Because no matter where you decide to be, how you treat one another is going to directly determine what your experience is like, especially when you're dealing with outside factors that are beyond your control. That's something you can always control. Be present and loving to each other. And I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Bye.